Good morning, everyone, and welcome. We're so glad that you're here. We're going to start in about 30 seconds. I'm going to show our overview video, and then we will get started. We still have people joining, but that's okay. So just get ready.
The International School for Development Justice at UWI presents the SDGs and You, Making Connections for Progress webinar series. Starting September 17th and continuing on every third Wednesday of the month, we explore the 17 Sustainable Development, what they are, their impact on Caribbean people, and the progress and challenges we face. Join us for 12 sessions with local and global experts. Ask questions, share your story, and make connections for progress. The SDGs and You webinar series. Register today.
Well, good morning again, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. We're happy to see you all. Welcome to the SDGs and You, our webinar series. This is our fourth webinar in the series. And today we're going to be discussing SDG 6, Clean Water and Sanitation, and SDG 14, Life Below Water. Our esteemed presenter today is Dr. Carl Payne. Dr. Payne is a lecturer and stream coordinator for Water Resources Management at the Center for Resource Management and Environmental Studies at the Cave Hill campus. Dr. Payne's research is focused on climate-resilient water resources management, blending artificial intelligence, data analytics, and systems thinking to drive innovative, science-based solutions for small island developing states. He has a PhD in water resources engineering from the University of South Florida and over 10 years of experience spanning academia and industry, including collaborating with interdisciplinary teams to develop cutting-edge solutions that leverage machine learning for data-driven decision-making. So, without further ado, welcome Dr. Payne, and I am handing it over to you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Pilgrim, for that introduction. And from the outset, let me thank the International School for Development Justice for this invitation to present. I'll go ahead and share my screen. So when Dr. Pilgrim reached out to me about first presenting on SDG 6, I was excited. But then she mentioned, how about SGD 6 and 14? I got even more excited, and it gave me an opportunity to really highlight the interconnectedness of watersheds, coasts, and oceans. And that is the title of my talk for today, Water Without Boundaries, Connecting Watersheds, Coasts, and Oceans. Now, this really, there's a continuum between a watershed, which is a contiguous landmass that has rivers, it has aquifers beneath our feet. Often there's a siloed approach to viewing these different systems, but there's really a continuum between them. And in many of our small island developing states, over 70% of the activity, economic activity, happens along the coastline. So whatever happens in watersheds really affects what happens in these coastal communities. Now, when we look at the distribution of water on the globally, about 97% is in oceans, and so about the other 3% is really fresh water available to us. And when we look at the distribution then of that fresh water, most of it is glaciers and ice caps. Because of the climate crisis, these are melting at an alarming rate. But most of the fresh water actually is groundwater hidden beneath our feet, about 30%, and about slightly over 1% is surface water from rivers and lakes. So that's the global kind of context for the distribution of water on our planet. Now, when we look at different islands and countries in the region, we can see that, for example, the groundwater dependent islands like Barbados, St. Kitts and Nevis, Antigua and Barbuda face not only high water stress, but water scarcity, right? And so this means that, for example, the total renewable water resources per capita, according to the FAO, that to not have a water scarce situation, you need more than 1,000. But for example, Barbados is below that threshold, is also has high water stress because the withdrawals as a percentage of the renewable resource is over 80%. But then larger countries, uh, continental type geographies like Belize, Guyana, Suriname have more abundance of water available. Now, there's some, regardless of the geographical context, there are some common challenges that uh, are we face not only in small island developing states, but really globally. Saline intrusion is a particularly pernicious issue, is a wicked problem because this is caused by overpumping, but is also caused by sea level rise and reductions in rainfall. And so many of the CARICOM member states already exceed the maximum contaminant level stipulated, for example, by the World Health Organization of 250 milligrams per liter. The other major issue facing us is excess nutrient discharge, primarily from agricultural runoff and from septic systems. And herein lies the connection between SDG 6 and SDG 14. SDG 6 is about clean water and access to clean water and proper sanitation, while SDG 14 is really about making sure that we have our pristine marine and coastal environments. But if we continue at this pace, the discharge of these excess nutrients will continue to impact not only what happens beneath our feet in groundwater systems, but also what happens in the marine environment. So therein lies the connection between the two, and why it's so critical to understand that continuum, that interconnectedness between watersheds, coasts, and the oceans, and why SDG 6 and 14 are interlinked and increasingly important to address the gaps there. The other issue affecting our coasts and our oceans is sargassum seaweed. So this is a pelagic macroalgae, not only affecting islands, also affecting the coast of Africa, affecting Mexico, parts of the United States. And this is increasingly being driven by climate change. And a recent paper in Nature Geoscience highlights the fueling of this sargassum, this pelagic macroalgae related to the climate crisis. So those are three major challenges that we face and are directly linked to SDG 6 and SDG 14. Now, there are 17 sustainable development goals in all, but I'll be focusing on number 6, which is, as I mentioned before, clean water and sanitation. And then number 14, life below water. So these are really a call to action to ensure peace and prosperity. But the climate crisis is increasingly making it difficult to ensure and meet the targets set out in these sustainable development goals. But as you can see, without reaching the goals of 6 and 14, it's almost impossible to have no poverty, zero hunger, good health and well-being without clean water is really almost impossible. And then quality education. So they're really cross-cutting across the other sustainable development goals. So as I mentioned before, SDG 6 is focused on clean water and sanitation. And the goal here is to ensure availability and sustainable management of water and sanitation for all. And SDG 14 focuses on conserving and to conserve and sustainably use the oceans, seas, and marine resources for sustainable development. So let's look at the progress made. I'll first start with SDG 6 and then move on to SDG 14. So there has been some progress in terms of access to water and in improved sanitation and hygiene, but the numbers are still stark. There are about 2 billion people on this planet without access to reliable and safe drinking water. I mean, in 2025 is hard to imagine, but that's still the reality. 3.4 billion without safe sanitation, and still 1.7 billion without basic hygiene. Now, since 2015, there have been improvements in terms of, for example, domestic wastewater safely treated. We're about 56%. But in the Caribbean region, recent data suggests about 85% of the wastewater generated enters the Caribbean Sea still largely untreated. And this has significant implications for SDG 14, because how can we have a healthy marine environment if we're still discharging untreated waste with high nutrients into the marine environment? Then there's still a huge gap in terms of efficiency and scarcity. The efficiency, 50% of countries globally still remain in the low efficiency. This is how efficient the systems are in terms of water service delivery, and non-revenue water, meaning losses in, for example, water distribution pipelines is still a major issue, not only in the region. It could be as high as 70%, but globally, this is still a huge problem. So to fill the gaps, wastewater treatment, efficiency, and governance is really important. And for example, governance issues that arise in Africa along the Nile River. I mean, that's a major potential source of conflict when you have a shared resource. And in bringing it more regionally, for example, agreements between Belize and Guatemala in terms of shared water resources have not been, the governance structure is still a binding constraint. So transitioning to where we are in terms of SDG 14 and some of the gaps, it's often underestimated how much the climate crisis impacts our oceans. Oceans actually absorb 30% of the CO2 that is in the atmosphere, and the deleterious impact is ocean acidification, right? So as that CO2 partitions into the ocean, then you get ocean acidification, which leads to essentially coral loss. Corals start to dissolve, and without coral reefs, our small island developing states don't have an economy. It's right now we're close to that 1.5 degree target of warming since pre-industrial times. Once we get to 2 degrees Celsius, Um, Scientists suggest that there's going to be no adaptation possible. The coral reef ecosystems start to fail at that point. Um, Pollution, plastic pollution that's choking the oceans. I also mentioned the emerging, well, since 2011 issue of sargassum seaweed, which changes um, the ecosystems, the habitats, for example, sea turtles, other important commercial fish, and 3 billion livelihoods depend on oceans. So, in terms of what has been, what progress has been made, there has been some progress on marine spatial planning initiatives. However, only 45% of countries globally have marine spatial plans formally approved, so that there needs to be even more focus there. But now in policy circles and in finance and climate finance frameworks, the blue economy is there's more attention paid there, but we still have a ways to go. So really, to meet these targets is a great ambition, but it happens against the backdrop of the climate crisis. Again, I'll give the Caribbean context. But for example, you could see in Iran, they're facing a water crisis and talking about having to uh, having to relocate tens of millions of people from the capital, Tehran, because they're essentially going to run out of water. And so we don't want to face that same situation. So really, SDG 6 is why there's that call to action, so that we have sustainable water supply. But a State of the Climate, Caribbean Climate Report suggests that the Caribbean as a whole will gradually warm. So that means increasing temperatures. It will also gradually dry, which means less water available. More intense hurricanes projected, which means coastal damage to coastal infrastructure, damage to water infrastructure, wastewater infrastructure. And then the warming trend in sea surface temperatures will continue into the future. This only portends even more dire situation for the sargassum seaweed blooms. So I'll now transition, now that I've given the context, I want to transition into the potential solutions, but say from the outset that you can't build climate resilience without building economic resilience. And so the analogy I always like to give is that imagine someone living paycheck to paycheck, and then every other month they have some emergency. So it could be a flat tire, could be a medical emergency. So you can never build personal resilience that way, because you're in a perpetual debt vortex, so to speak. So bringing it back now to climate resilience, many of the global, so-called global south is highly indebted. So how do these highly indebted economies, we saw the recent event, Hurricane Melissa in Jamaica, Category 5 storm, and the hurricane and the damage that that caused. So imagine every 2 to 5 years trying to build resilience in that context. So that's why initiatives like the Bridgetown Initiative are so important, to really giving that fiscal space to build climate resilience. So one thing, so I work across engineered and natural systems, um, doing the design and more deeply understanding how these systems function and how to build more effective systems. And the hallmark really of building resilience, I'll paint it from and this is relevant now more so to SDG 6, which is about clean water and sanitation. But the key to building resilient systems is really diversification, decentralization, and redundancy. So diversification means, in simple terms, don't put all your eggs in one basket. So it means for water resources systems, you have multiple options. A perfect example of diversification is the Singapore 4 national tap strategy, where they have rainwater harvesting, imported water from Malaysia, what they call new water, which is essentially utilizing wastewater, and desalination. But unfortunately, in some of our islands, some islands depend solely on one source, right? And that source is highly dependent, the dynamics are highly driven by climatic changes. So uh, when there's a failure in that one source, right? When a river becomes dry, then what? And that means you have an overall system failure. Decentralization just means instead of having one large treatment facility or storage facility, how about decentralizing and having multiple, right? So that this will avoid a single point of failure, so that you have that um, less of a cascading type risk or domino effect where one large system fails and so everything else fails. And then redundancy. This just means have a backup plan. So instead of one storage tank, you have 2 storage tanks. But again, to build these resilient water systems, right, you need the financing to be in place. So I can't reinforce enough how much economic resilience and financial resilience is key to building climate resilience. So then transitioning then into some of the innovation. For example, I recently returned from Brussels, Belgium. So I'm part of this global initiative on artificial intelligence for natural hazards. And the figures you see here are where we're using weather and soil moisture data from sensors and leveraging artificial intelligence. So the graph is showing that we can predict. So the red is showing the predicted soil moisture 6 hours ahead, and the blue is showing the actual. So when we talk about efficiency, this type of data-driven decision making can help more efficient irrigation management, for example, which would help to fill in one of the major gaps identified in the recent SDG 6 report. Then here is a nature-based solution, and these, globally, things are moving back. After we've damaged nature, we're kind of moving back to nature and away from hard engineering solutions. And here is a wastewater system, working with a partner here in Barbados to use nature to take water from kitchen. So this is gray water, so from kitchens, showers, and then through this system, we're able to remove nutrients. As I said, those have huge negative coastal impacts, but also bacteria. And so this is directly addressing SDG 6, but also 14, because by improving the water quality that discharges to the ocean, we have a better marine environment and a less deleterious impact on coral reef ecosystems. Then SDG 14, I mentioned before, there has been progress on marine protected areas and agreements around biodiversity, but combating marine pollution, the third item on this slide, is still a huge problem in terms of plastic pollution, but I also mentioned in terms of nutrient discharge to the ocean. And again, that understanding the continuum between what happens at the watershed scale has huge implications for what happens in the marine environment. Now, I'm going to talk a lot about sargassum seaweed because at the Center for Resource Management and Environmental Studies, UWI Cave Hill, where I lecture, we have done over a decade of research in this area. And I think that it addresses both, no, I think it addresses both combating marine pollution, but also could be critical to the sustainable blue economy. Also, this seaweed is rich in biodiversity. So we have to ensure that any sustainable blue economy solutions also ensure that there is not a major biodiversity loss. Now, this a report published by colleagues, so De Rocher et al. In 2020, really did a good job of highlighting the various potential value chain and valorization pathways for sargassum seaweed. So, for example, agriculture, biofuels, bioplastics. But irrespective of the potential valorization pathways, there are still some challenges. So this work done by colleagues a few years ago from Southampton. So this seaweed, we started to see a proliferation since 2011. But you can see, for example, 2013, the map is a lot later than 2021, 2022. So there's that seasonal and intra-annual variability, which is a challenge that would have to be overcome if we have a sustainable valorization pathway. Then another study coming out of our colleagues here at CERMES looked at the arsenic concentration in sargassum seaweed. And so arsenic is a potential carcinogen. So this is also, and is also seasonally variable, but it really needs to be more funding if we're going to be able to do the long-term monitoring that is required to get the data for us to address the gaps in SDG 14 to ensure that we have these sustainable marine ecosystems that drive the blue economy. And then this is our work on sargassum forecasting. I said the scale is so huge. This is why I wanted to focus on this for SDG 14. The scale is so huge that it's called the Great Atlantic Sargassum Belt, stretches from the coast of Africa all the way to the US. And so it's about an 8,000 kilometer stretch of this seaweed that floats on the ocean surface. And you can see it from satellites. So what you're seeing on the left side of the screen is a satellite image that we use in the forecast. The pixels in blue is where there's no sargassum, and the more bright colors is where there is sargassum. And so we could forecast out to 3 months. And you can see, for example, let's say for Barbados, there's going to be clear conditions until maybe the end of February, where we will start to see greater influxes of sargassum seaweed. And then we are now transitioning into understanding more local scale impacts. So this is really the next phase of the type of innovative work and type of collaborative work we do. For example, with our partner at the University of Southampton in the UK, we've been deploying these sensors you see on the right. in the sargassum mats, and on the left, each of those lines is showing where a track of the mat. So we better have a local understanding of the communities that sargassum will affect and improve the forecast so that we can really start to leverage this data to address the gaps in SDG 14, which is all around the blue economy and preserving our coastal and marine environments. But beyond forecasting with our partners in Germany, so the German Biomass Research Center and GIZ, we are now at a stage where we're looking at how best we're doing the research, the fundamental research to understand how we can convert this sargassum biomass into a biogas, but also a digestate, so a material after the digestion process that has potential applications for agriculture. But as I said, the complexity is that there's arsenic, which is a heavy metal that the sargassum uptakes in phosphorus limited conditions. So in conclusion then, watersheds, coasts, and oceans function as one interconnected system. In terms of SDG 6, I mentioned efficiency in water systems and wastewater and the nutrients associated with that still being a huge problem and a huge gap. I mentioned that innovation, for example, artificial intelligence, but we really need good data sharing agreements if we're going to unlock the potential there. SDG 14, the blue economy, yes, is increasingly recognized as a critical engine for economic resilience, but land-based sources of pollution, from plastics to nutrients, are still going to be a major issue if we are going to meet our targets. And then innovation, whether it be, again, technological innovation, but innovation in climate finance. There are lots of good ideas and leadership coming from Barbados and the Bridgetown Initiative. And this innovation is a necessity and not a luxury. So just I'd like to acknowledge some of the partners that have made our work possible, our work at the intersection of SDG 6 and 14, so Global Water Partnership Caribbean, German Biomass Research Center, University of Southampton, McGill University, GIZ, and a local partner, the Walker's Institute for Regenerative Research, Education, and Design. So on that note, I'd like to end the talk and open the floor to any questions.
Thank you very much, Dr. Payne. That was a very interesting presentation on SDG 6 and SDG 14. You can stop your sharing now, please. Because I think yes, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like you to give a warm round of applause to Dr. Payne, who did such a great job for us today. So thank you so much for that. We're going to now open the floor for questions. So if you have a question that you would like to ask Dr. Payne, please raise your hand. I will call on you. Then you can open your mic and ask your question.
Yeah. I am MD Naseem from India. Very thankful for Pellegrini ma'am and Vinay sir. I am very, very interested in this field. I am also a civil engineer. This course is very important for professional in this generation. Professionals in work in environmental and climate change. Climate change is a very interesting point in our upcoming generation. So this program is very knowledgeable. Thank you for all participate and you and sir. My question is how can resolve storm water management? This is a storm water management is the natural process of the rainwater harvesting. stormwater. If rainfall, then if this water we catch and catchment area and the part by part and location by location, then we are the very useful for our society and nation and all over the world for water resolve problem. So kindly request to you
Right.
please.
Sure.
Uh,
And yeah, thank you so much for that question. And so, as I mentioned before, in Singapore, for example, they have the four national tap strategy. There's some islands, Carriacou comes to mind, that depend solely on rainwater harvesting. But the issue, so remember I mentioned to build resilience, you need diversification, right? So the question comes down to, well, if we're saying climate change will lead to less water, it means do we have all of these rainwater harvesting systems, but where's the rain, right? So it means then that we need to think more holistically about, and I agree, rainwater harvesting is going to be increasingly important. We cannot throw away any, there's not one particular silver bullet. So increasingly, I think rainwater harvesting and other options like desalination will have to come to the fore. Also, it's a good point because of all the solutions, rainwater harvesting from an engineering perspective is perhaps the most low maintenance and the cheapest. So in rural type settings, rainwater harvesting may be the approach. But I think with increasing pollution in the atmosphere, the question becomes: is there more treatment of water from rainwater required? And then the other one is in terms of, well, if there's less rain because of climate change, then what happens with the infrastructure that has been installed? I agree too. You made a good point about integrated water resources management. That is key to SDG 6. In many countries, unfortunately, for example, India shares water resources with other countries. So what are the agreements, right? Same thing along the Nile River I mentioned. Same thing in Central America.
yeah.
And yeah, these transboundary issues are becoming increasingly important. But thank you so much for the comment and those two questions. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. And Daniel, you can ask your question now, please.
All right, thank you very much. I am calling from Nigeria, Kaduna State precisely. I am a very passionate environmentalist here. I do local contents on social media just to promote and propagate about the SDGs. And incidentally, I just finished my program, SDGs Advocate Program, recently. Tomorrow is going to be our graduation. And it was through the SDGs Advocate Program that I got to even find out about most of the SDGs. So my question now is, how do we get to let locals know about these SDGs? Because the problem now is that a good number of people are not even aware of it, let alone doing the necessary things. And then the second question will be, are there natural mechanisms that we can use to preserve natural water bodies? Because recently I discovered here in my own state, once it's September, there's a particular river close to us. There's a major river here. It is completely dried up. It is completely dried up. And people around are really not aware of what is happening, which of course we know that is climate change. So are there mechanisms, natural mechanisms that can be applied to preserve our natural water bodies? Thank you very much.
And Daniel, thanks for your very insightful comments. And the first one is really critical, right? I didn't speak much about the communications aspect, but communicating with stakeholders for any of this to work, you really need stakeholder buy-in. And I'm glad to hear about your work there, trying to disseminate information to local communities. To give some context, for example, I spoke about, again, the Singapore model of, well, what they call new water, of reusing wastewater. But here in the Caribbean, there's a lot of hesitance about wastewater reuse, for example, right? And the safety of it. So I agree with you wholeheartedly that for many of these solutions to work, stakeholder engagement is going to be increasingly important. Social media will be key to especially engage a younger audience, and that's the kind of information chain that we would like for younger people to kind of be the champions and influence and spread their word to their parents. It could be more formally through the educational system. Many people don't know about, in the global south, don't, as you said, there's that river there in Nigeria, but how many people know about their own local environment? So it could come down to having embedded citizen science more in communities where people monitor things about water bodies in their local community. Could be doing, simple stream gauging, could be deploying a sensor so they have a better intuitive feel for how these water systems work. Now, I think your comment is related to Nasim and Sari's comment, where you said sometimes the river runs dry. It could be a climatic factor, but it also could come down to integrated water resources management, right? Is it that because groundwater systems and surface water systems are interconnected, so is it a matter of unsustainable management, or is it solely climatic driven? So we have to look more carefully at an integrated approach to water resources management. Yes, the climate crisis is real, but also we can't keep our eyes off of enhancing water resources, integrated water resources management. But thanks, Daniel, for those insightful questions and comments.
Thank you so much to Danielle and Nazim. Do we have any other questions from the floor? None? Okay. So, ladies and gents, I would like to thank you for your participation and for your attendance, and many thanks to Dr. Payne. I'm going to ask Ms. Pamela Eversley to take the floor and talk to you a little bit about the sponsor for this webinar, which is the International School for Development Justice. Ms. Eversley is the Customer Experience and Business Development Manager at ISDJ, and I'm going to ask her to take the floor now. Pamela?
Hello and good afternoon and good night to our listeners in India. I know some of you are up late because it's about 11:30 at in the night there. So thank you for taking the time to join us on our webinar today. So I wanted to introduce the ISDJ to you and to share a bit of information about us. The ISTJ is a fully asynchronous online university that is solely based, all of our curriculum is solely based on the SDGs, the 17 SDGs of the United Nations. So currently we will be accepting, so we have postgraduate degrees, postgraduate certificates, diplomas, and master's degrees in the areas that you see highlighted here on the screen is climate studies, public health, sustainability and data analytics, sustainable development, and justice. These 5 master's programs will be offered from this Friday for applications. We have another 5 programs that will be on stream in February, but our first suite of master's postgraduate programs will be offered. Applications are opening on Friday. Well, it will be Thursday night, midnight, Friday morning, to receive your applications. Um, on the screen, you will see our application page, but our email or website address is www.isdj.edu. And there you will find more information about our programming, or you could send us an email at isdj@uwi.edu, and we will share whatever additional information that you'd like to have. Now, the postgraduate, how our programs are stacked up is that the postgraduate certificate is 4 courses. Those 4 courses are taken in 8-week blocks. So every 8 weeks, you will take a course if you're part-time, or if you are full-time, you will take 2 courses every 8 weeks. There's a break of a week between. So in 16 weeks, you can complete your postgraduate certificate in one of those 5 areas that I spoke about earlier. And then you take a break for about a week or 2. I think it's about 2 weeks, 14 days. And you can continue with 3 other courses to complete your postgraduate diploma. So it's stackable. Completing that will take about 32 weeks. And then you'll continue on to that. You can do 4 other courses and have your MSc in one of those 5 subject areas. All of our content is solely based on the SDGs and how to navigate within these different spheres of content. So you have the public health and informatics is how to use data within the public health system in relation to sustainability. Sustainable leadership is also one of our master's programs. Similarly, how do you infuse sustainability within or as a leader within your organization? So I think some of you would have received information from me already. I will be over the next few hours sending out brochures to those persons here who have logged on, which will give you detailed information about the program, about our matriculation requirements, the cost of the programs, and I can share the cost with you. An MSc at $10,000 is a really good deal. It's really good. If you don't have to take the MSc all the way from the beginning. You don't have to register for the MSc. What you can do is you can take the certificate, and that's $3,500 US, and then you can take the diploma, which is an additional $4,500. And then after that, you can take your you can pay another $45 for your master's program. So you can incrementally get to the master's program, and you can pay for each component as you work through the program. Now, I will tell you at the end of each one, you do receive a UWI accredited certificate. So you have a postgraduate certificate, a postgraduate diploma, or you can complete all the way through to your master's degree program. So it's there are 3 entry points and there are 3 exit points that you can take advantage of. You don't have to have an undergraduate degree. If you do, that is absolutely wonderful. If you don't, we'll take a look at your qualifications, your CV. You can send that to us, and we can determine what entry point you can make. You might have to take an additional course to qualify. That option is also open to you. So take advantage of this opportunity to apply to the International School for Development Justice, a school solely based on the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations. Beautiful thing about this program as well is that it's all asynchronous. You can log on at 2 a.m., 10:30 p.m., at lunchtime, complete your modules, complete your learning assessments, and in 8 weeks or less, depending on how you go through the program, each module, there are 8 modules, 1 per week. You can complete all of them in the 8 weeks, or you can complete them as you move through the material. Do your assessments, and you can be qualified in as little as 16 weeks with your postgraduate diploma in one of our 5 subject areas. Any questions?
Thank you so much, Ms. Eversley. We have a question from Uchi Oleka. Uchi, you can go ahead, please.
Yeah, thank you very much. Good afternoon, good evening. So I am by name Uche Oleka, joining the call from Nigeria. Yeah, Mrs. Pamela, regarding all what you said concerning the SDG program and the tuition fee and how it is going to be run, as in during the course of the semester or trimester as it is. Uh, Firstly, I would like to ask, is there, out of curiosity though, one, is there a discount for students like, early birds? And secondly, is there anything like, is there an avenue for a physical uh, class whereby students can attend physically if you are interested? And lastly, do the school offer do the school offer anything like a scholarship? As in, is there a scholarship application, and what is the guarantee of that happening if there is? Although I would have loved to ask Dr. Payne some questions too, but I guess that time is way past. So thank you very much.
Uchi, hi. Thank you so very much for your questions. The last question, I'm not quite clear on if you could repeat that last question for me.
Okay. So the last question is what I'm trying to get is, do you guys offer a sort of scholarship
Scholarships
kind
is
of?
what it's
Oh,
asking
Yeah.
about.
scholarships. Okay. Okay. I got your questions now. Okay, so let me answer your questions in this way. At the moment, we do not have a scholarship opportunity. However, we are working with some organizations and um, institutions and organizations to offer scholarships and grants to persons who are not able to take the program at the cost that we have them at. In this first iteration, we do not have. However, I can inform you as soon as we do that there are scholarships available. So this is why we kind of tiered it the way we did. So if you may not have the full 10,000, but you can start with a 35. And that 3,500 gives you still a postgraduate certificate in the particular area. And that gives us some time to work with our lenders and our partners to see how we can develop some scholarship money and grant money for persons who aren't able to make that full payment. So, can I give you an email address that you can drop me an email? I'll put it in the chat so I can keep your information to hand. So that as soon as that happens, we can contact you. The email address I'm going to
Yeah,
put in
yeah.
the chat.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
You are most welcome.
There are other people who are asking as well, Pamela, so that would be good.
Yeah, so if you can just drop me an email of your interest and the area that you're interested in studying, then I can I'll contact you with any information that we have as it comes to hand.
Thank you. And there was one more question, but that person seems to have put down their hand. Do we have any further questions? Nasiru, go ahead, please.
Yes, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
If it is morning, good morning, everyone. Sorry, maybe due to time difference. My question is similar to the one that this one of my colleagues just asked. It's just somehow similar. So, like most of us from, let's say, from Africa, is because of there are like huge difference in terms of exchange rates. So most of us that are maybe talented or have the potential to further their study in this field of sustainability is at it. For example, now if I want to do my PGD or my master's in this area, it's as a result of that what do you call it, exchange rate. Your institution, it may be normal for you to say yes, it is just $3,500 for PGD. This, so it's something, but when I change it to my own, it's a huge amount of money from here. So, and we have interest, we want to venture into this field so that we can help our planet. But as a result of this, what I am suggesting is that if you can have a program or a kind of arrangement that maybe you train or you do like preparatory class, that when you see the potential of some student, that maybe you can find a way or sponsorship from other organizations that are ready to combat this climate issues, so that you can directly enroll those whether online or on site. So that is just this thing, the suggestion I want to. Thank you.
Nasir, can I say your name, Nasiru?
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Um,
Hello.
Nasim,
Nasim.
one
Nasiru.
second, Nasim. So Nasiru, there is a course that we offer called the Masterclass. The Masterclass is a free course. There's one component where there's a cost attached. It's a $10 US identification verification that you have to do through one of our partners' qualification check. But the course is absolutely free outside of that 10 US dollars. What that course does, it's actually the essential component of it. There are two tracks. There's essential, which is free, and then there's a professional. It just has the assessments attached to them. It gives you a really good understanding of the SDGs and the knowledge, some really good knowledge base that you could use while we work on getting the scholarship and grant funding for you. We've just started a cohort 2. Cohort 3 will be starting in January. So what I'll do is all the participants here, I will send you the information about our masterclass, which is over 3 weeks. It's using the content is extremely good in understanding the SDGs. And there are knowledge questions after each module. I think there are 5 modules that you have to do. So would that be something that I can share with you until we can get to the point where we can offer scholarships and grants? Yes. Yes? Okay. So what I'll do is I'll get the list of participants and registrants from Miss Laura, and I will have that information sent to you so that as the portal, and I'll keep you updated when the portal opens to receive those applications for the master class in January. The Master's Senate approved programs will start on Friday. Okay? Does that help some?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, we're getting some responses in the chat. Ladies and gentlemen, it would be better if you just sent your email to istj@ue.edu rather than putting your email in the chat. We'll put Pamela, if you could put the email address in the chat once again for them, that would be very useful. All right, thank you so much for that. Yes, so it's istj@ue.edu. That's where you're going to send your email with your name and the program that you're interested in. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for attending today. Thank you, Pamela, and thank you to Dr. Payne. We had a marvelous time and we have come to the end of our meeting. Have a wonderful rest of your day or your night. Bye-bye.